We'll call the April meeting of the Audit Committee to order. It's 4:01. Thank you all for being here. First thing we need to do is approve the agenda. Chair will entertain a few changes to the agenda.
Leave the treasury reports off, and today's discussion moved to the 5th next month, and we're not prepared yet for the animal shelter. With those revisions, I would recommend we go forward with the agenda.
Okay. So moved. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Agenda is approved. Mr. Ball, would you mind giving the invocation?
Address me? Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Let's pray. Oh, Heavenly Father, we are grateful for all that you do for us, your providence, your wisdom, your care. We thank you for our county. We enjoy its many blessings that you provided for us. And we just ask that you would lift up those who manage it and support it, and ask that you would guide our discussions in the way ahead to continue to improve and provide great services to those who live here. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As far as my remarks to begin the meeting, thank you all for making it on this rainy day. I expect at the next regular supervisors meeting in executive session, we will confer about the appointment for our open supervisor seat on the audit committee. So we did not address that in March, but we'll address it at our next regular meeting in April. Also, I don't want this time to get away from us as we extend our thanks to Mr. Keaton for all of his years of service as the county administrator, and extend our gratitude for Mr. Robertson for accepting our offer as the county administrator effective July 1st.
Yeah.
I know you all will join me in congratulating him, and yeah. Said for a long time, when Randy needs to remember something that, that happened more than 7 or 8 years ago, he always asks Don, right? Don might not remember all the details, but he's been around and he can figure it out. Yeah, so
he knows vaguely where it's buried at.
Yes. Very good. We're all very excited. Thank you, Don. We full confidence and appreciate your support for this meeting as well. You all may not realize, but Mr. Robertson takes our minutes and publishes them, and those were sent out on Friday. I may have forwarded them on Saturday, but anybody have any changes to the March minutes of the audit committee meeting? All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the March minutes.
Move we approve the March minutes as they were written.
Anyone or all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, so for this afternoon, we have no visitors scheduled, so I will just leave that on as a standing bullet if that's okay. Reports, we were to have one, but we've amended the agenda. We will touch base with Ms. Sly. She confirmed her attendance for next month in May on the 5th, and so we hope to speak to her about investments. And if I may, I'll have some discussions with her before the next meeting also. If you recall, last month we talked to her about, she told us about everything that she's been doing in the department, and so I think we'll have a nice robust discussion about goals for the Treasurer's Department, and just putting some guardrails up there and parameters so that we can help support her and the Treasurer's functions and duties. So we'll plan to talk about that next month. All right, so under old business, I believe we said in March that we would like to have a little bit of additional discussion on Tyler cashiering and just options there, where we are with implementation of that and allowing our citizens to pay things online and some of those details. I think we ran out of time a little bit last month, so Sure, Ms. Wells, if you're able to shed any light on that.
Yes, I had a meeting with IT, Tyler Munis, VP, our direct representative, and maybe one or two other people, I can't recall, but I did talk to them, or we did talk to them about the issues that we're having with Tyler Cashiering. They're gonna do a redeployment on April 21st, to hopefully install the fixes for that program. As far as the discussion behind that, Tyler Cashiering is supposed to make things quicker and easier for citizens to be able to pay. It's supposed to be quicker and easier for the treasurer's office. And when Julie Slide was elected, she decided to go with Tyler Cashiering, and it's supposed to save the county some money. And during the implementation process, it was determined that there were problems with the way the county has 2 billing cycles a year, and then we also need to be able to, we have 2 types of tax on that real estate. So in trying to ensure that you pay the oldest bill first, long story short, there were problems that other people may not encounter that have Tyler Cashiering that we did encounter. So their software developers were working on a fix for that, and they expect to be able to deploy it on April 21st.
Is it also a complicating factor that we, in fact, have 2 towns that are also on Munis?
No, the towns.
More has to do with the twice a year due dates. Okay.
Are the towns on this program?
They are on Munis. I don't know if they have Tyler Cashiering or not. I can't answer that question because I'm not sure. But they have signed on with Tyler and with Munis, the Munis program, and our IT is helping them with their IT support on that, and they pay a fee to us for that.
I recall from my time on town council in Smithfield that the town was having kind of the same issue with the 2 billing cycles, some of the issues that the county has, they also have, being a customer, so, perhaps following up on this issue will help the towns as well with their implementation for town taxes.
If we have access to this Taylor cashiering software, would they be covered under our umbrella or not? Would they have to have a separate contract?
They could have Tyler Cashiering as well if we have it and implement it, yes.
So it's available to them primarily because we're linked through service and,
Because they're signed on to Munis through us, yes.
very good.
In addition to that, we had a discussion with Tyler last year sometime about the implementation of the online Tyler payment system, and it's also works really well for the public to make payments online. The problem is it's a little more expensive for credit cards because the citizens pay the fee. It's cheaper checks, but we were able to work out a cheaper check fee because they weren't willing to budge on the credit card fee. And so Tyler, in that discussion, we did get that rate down. I know there was a little bit of discussion about that, about why the fees were a little bit higher than the previous format that we had, but that's why we went to Tyler Payments, to make it easier for the county and the citizens, but fees were a little bit more with the credit cards. In addition to all of that, we also had a discussion about whether or not it would be cheaper to go with a different ERP system. Should we, am I jumping the gun on the RFP?
Oh, that's bullet
Okay.
B, thank you.
Yeah. So for the RFP part of it, Dawn, me, and IT, we've had some discussions about Tyler Munis and the pros and cons of Tyler Munis, and we've scheduled a discussion with them, and Mr. Stanton, sorry, thank you, is going to be in on that discussion, and that discussion is going to be April 22nd, and then we have some internal discussions we're going to do prior to that. I will say before we get into that changing ERP systems is extremely difficult, extremely time consuming, and extremely expensive. So one of the things that we'll be doing during that discussion is trying to figure out is the balance of, are we getting sufficient value for what we pay now? Are they able to give us some cost savings because we've been a long time customer? Should we really switch vendors? I mean, add to that, the towns just went on Munis. So, you know, It's not a beneficial time right now to switch ERP systems, but if we can improve the discussion and the relationship with Tyler and try to push them a little more, maybe we get more money or more value for our money. So, you have any comments about switching ERPs?
Oh, yes, I would. I would love to be involved in that conversation.
Well, no, to make, do you have any comments as far as your thoughts on changing ERP systems?
Yes, I'm not in favor of it. We don't have any issues at the school with the system.
How often is the license renewed? Is it like a 5-year service contract, or what's the structure?
So the licenses were already purchased, but it's an annual maintenance contract.
Okay.
And each module, and this is one of the discussions I had with them, they're nickel and diming us. Granted, in
On
their
changes?
defense, everybody does.
On changes?
No, so each module costs a fee.
Okay.
This module costs X, that module costs Y, etc. The same thing would happen if we went to somebody else. Well, if you want the Tyler cashier or Microsoft cashiering, this is what this costs. If you want financials, this is what this costs. So you get nickel and dimed with everybody, and everybody, wants to give you the whole package. And so, yes, right now the whole package is X, but then annually you have to pay Y, right? And so then you also have increases in that fee for different reasons, usually CPI, but
So are these annual changes, are they negotiated, or is it just, here it is, take it?
so typically that type of thing is negotiated on the front end when you're doing the RFP to change systems. There's usually something in the contract that says your increase annually will be CPI. Granted, if you don't have those additional modules when you sign on, you get whatever the market rate is for that module. So,
Okay, we don't have to belabor here, but when we meet in your office, I think on the 16th, I'll just plant the seed. One of the things I'd like to talk about is performance fees. And to see if we can get that in the next round of negotiation and use that as some leverage.
when you say performance fees, what are you referring to?
That's where we as the customer get to make a determination as to how much of a fee we will pay them on an annual or semi-annual basis based on how well they support us and how responsive they are to our needs and our requirements. So, Dr. Admiral Boss familiar with performance fees as well. Some of you others might be as well.
So we would, first of all, you'd have to renegotiate the contract because we already have one in place, but how would you determine what that fee should be if we're already paying, say, $50,000 a year? Would you add more to that, or would you tell them you're going to take off $20,000 and set that aside for performance fee, and then $30,000 is what we'll actually pay you?
Well, maybe we start a little low and see where we land, huh? It's in the art of the negotiation.
Right.
We don't have to belabor it here, but it's just a tool we could think about to, again, get more value out of what they're delivering to us. Because I at least get the sense that you would like to see more value. And I hate to use the word efficiency because it's political football right now, but more efficiency out of what they're doing for us.
You don't know till you ask, right? So I think
Oh, yeah, we
all
should
these
definitely
discussions
ask.
are good.
Right, and the more
Yes.
we push them, you don't get anything if you don't ask. So the more we push them, the better. I won't say that I don't think we should be with Tyler. I don't want anybody to get that impression. We can talk about it. I just don't want, I'm not ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm not ready to switch ERP systems.
I'm not either.
Is there always room for improvement for everybody? Yes. Anyway.
You'd mentioned modules, new modules cost extra,
If we got additional service.
an additional module. What about upgrades?
Upgrades, we're not charged for upgrades.
We're not charged for upgrades, so, and are they doing upgrades on a fairly regular basis?
They do them more than we do them. So you're not always required to upgrade for every new upgrade they have. They might have them annually, but they don't require them. They don't require you to upgrade until it becomes a legacy version. And once it becomes a legacy version, you're required to upgrade. So right now, we're not on the oldest version, so we're okay right now. But we do want to go to the next upgrade because there's some additional features that you can get for each new upgrade. That's what you get out of it, basically, is new features.
Just for clarification, Munis is the ERP system, and Tyler Cashiering is an adjunct module to the ERP. Is it a different developer?
It's still Tyler Munis. It's
Oh, so
still
Tyler is the developer, Munis is the platform. Got you, okay, thanks.
And sometimes I've found, 'cause I work in healthcare software, sometimes I've found if companies think there's an opportunity for an enterprise agreement, let's say, they will cover, modules that could become available in the future under a negotiated rate, right? So maybe you're willing to pay a little bit more, but then the new modules that come about, you slide into their enterprise service, and then it doesn't feel as, nickel and dime segregated. Be part of the discussion, but anyway, I think communication is good, and I think it's good that, squeaky wheel and all that, right? I think it's good that Tyler and Munis understand.
And I think we could hit them again, so to speak, on the fees to the customer, because that's one of the things that we discussed with them last year that we weren't happy about. We really didn't want the fees to go up, and so if they're seeing that again as a concern, maybe they'll reconsider, so.
Is Windsor utilizing Munis?
They are on Munis.
Okay, because we do the collections for a number of their utilities, do we not?
Are there utilities?
Sewer? Don't we do the collections for
No.
sewer?
Sewer is a county system. It's not their sewer at all.
It's not there, so it's our, so that's how, so it's a separate building.
Yeah, they do their water billing, we do the sewer billing because it's our system.
Could anyone remind me what was supposed to happen with HRSD billing?
Yeah.
We're still on the waiting list.
Still on the waiting list.
Is that going to affect just us, or is that going to affect the two towns as well?
Smithfield's already on HRSD.
They are already on it.
I get my bill from Rubs. You do too? You get
I
a
do
bill
too.
from Rubs?
Mm-hmm.
My wife pays them, I don't know.
Yeah.
Now
The Rubs is the bill for your water and sewer for Smithfield.
I get a bill from Harubs, no, HRSD, not Harubs, but.
Yeah, well, it's, and everybody in the county does, well, that's the treatment portion of the sewer.
Okay.
So the county's bill is for the water and the sewer collection. The Harub's bill is, so if you're a town of Windsor resident, you get a water bill for the town, a sewer bill from the county, and a sewer bill from HRSD.
But the HRSD is just the treatment portion,
The
it's
treatment
not the.
portion of it, right.
Yeah,
Wow.
3 bills from
Yes.
3 different places.
yes.
Should probably be able to do better than that.
Well, it's just because the water and sewer are separate. In the county, you get 2 bills. You get one from HRSD and then one from the county for water and sewer.
Okay. And you sit on the HRSD board, right?
No. That's almost like a statewide board. I don't know anybody on that board. You, Doug?
So no supervisors, we have no representative.
That's a regional state.
I'm not sure who the appointing,
I think they're appointed by the governor, aren't they?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Don't we have someone from HRSD coming to make a presentation to the board of supervisors soon? No? Oh, I thought there was a presentation coming up.
SIPSA.
SIPSA.
SIPSA comes.
Okay. Okay.
Because HRSD treats like 25% of the state sewer, some huge
It's a lot.
number. Yeah. A large portion.
All right, any other old business? All right, move on to new business. I did ask Mr. Keaton this afternoon to come and just do a brief budget overview. Since you all are numbers people, I thought you'd appreciate a summary of the budget as proposed for 25-26.
Is that it right there? Yep. Well, we'll just use the same presentation we did the other night. So, just some highlights for the budget. we're calling this a maintenance budget this year because there are no expansion of programs, no new positions. There is a 3% salary increase in the budget for county and school employees. Of course, that's the same amount, the state is doing for state employees. The school's budget, they had separated their budget into two items. One was the required items, which was basically salary increases and the health insurance, then a few maintenance contracts and things like that. And they also had a reduction in revenue from the state of around $500,000. So the $3 million increase was not a $3 million increase in their operating budget. It was a $3 million increase to the county because of the $500,000 reduction. So it was really about $2.6 million roughly was the actual operating increase, correct? Mm-hmm. Our tax relief amount continues to grow, and I'll go over that in just a minute. A penny of tax this year would generate $686,000, so we are seeing some growth in the tax base, but I'll explain a little bit more about that in a little bit. And this budget does include a 5-cent real estate tax rate increase. So this is the number that is we've been looking at for the last several years, the large growth we've seen in the amount of taxes that are exempted. And there's two different categories of exemptions. There's the elderly and disabled, which is one category, and then you have the disabled veterans, and there's some other veterans killed in action, those who are, and then there's a new version that also included ones who died in service, not necessarily killed in action. So this started off in 2011, but we just went back 10 years. And you can see the first few years was a modest increase per year. But when you look at the last 3 years particularly, it has been a dramatic increase. We've gone from 2023 to the proposed budget, we've gone up $2 million during that time period. And it is, it's just every week the Commissioner's Office is getting applications in. In fact, last week they had 13 applications in their waiting to be processed. Only one was from an existing Alloway resident. The other 12 were all people who were moving to the county into new construction or just moving into existing homes. So,
you know what might be interesting on that particular chart, because there's really two elements in this. One is veterans or service related, and the other is senior, which is capped.
That's the next slide, isn't it?
It would be interesting just to see on that chart how much of each of those increases.
He has it split out.
yeah, I think I've got the numbers. I might just have the numbers. I didn't split out on the chart, but we do have the numbers, Dick, and there are the vast majority of it is the veterans. But we combine them together for the chart just to show the total amount of taxes relief.
If I recall, the elderly disabled has held fairly constant around $500,000.
It's capped.
No, it's not capped.
It's capped for income.
Oh, yes. They have to meet an income threshold, and then there's a certain amount of relief that's granted. Whereas the veterans there's no income requirement, and it's for whatever the house is.
And I think that is something that needs to be really addressed and needs to be taken back up to the state. All of this thing associated, including the spouses now, is the benevolence of the state. And I totally appreciate what they're trying to do for veterans, et cetera. But the state is, not a dime of this comes out of the state's hide.
Correct.
But wasn't it on voter referendum last fall about extending it to the spouses?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
it was extended to the,
But
and I applaud it.
But that wasn't the state. I mean, the voters voted for that.
That's correct.
And it's fine. But it was a state referendum that we were voting on, not a county referendum.
Well, it was one of those referendums, it would be hard to argue against it. I mean, it was no,
Oh, yeah.
it would be, and I think the original, Bobby, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the original one in 2011 was just the state authorize it, correct? So the basis of it did come about is when the state just said, we want to grant this exemption, and they did. Then they further solidified it by having constitutional amendments that put it in, set it in concrete, basically. But this is there's a report that the Commissioner's Office, we're number 6 in the state as far as the percent of our budget that goes to tax relief or that exempted from our tax rolls. So just to give you a idea of the ones that,
Randy?
I'm sorry.
And I think, doesn't the legislation read 100% permanently disabled veterans?
Yes.
It's not any other, it's 100% permanently disabled and surviving spouses,
Correct,
right, of 100% disabled veterans.
yeah. So it could be decades. I mean, this relief could go on for decades.
And I think that the biggest issue that I personally have with it is that the definition of 100%.
That's a VA determination.
Yeah. I mean, I know a few folks that are drawing their retirement, they're drawing disability, and they're working for a six-figure salary. That's not disabled to me.
Well, I'll give you an example of the ones that are most impacted. So Stafford County has the highest percentage at 8%, Hampton at a little over 5%, Chesapeake's 5%, Suffolk's 4.8%, Prince George is 4.8%, we're 4.5%. So 4.5% of our tax revenue is going for this program. That was for 2025. For 2026, we're above 5%. We're at 5.15%. So it's growing. A couple of years ago, we were below 3%. So it's really growing, and it's almost impossible to calculate the amount each year because FY25, we budgeted $2.5 million in the current year budget. We're at $2,977,000 as of March 31. So we have 3 months left to go in the fiscal year, and we're already $500,000 above our budget.
And Randy, I think the Commissioner's Office had like 13 applications that they were
Yeah.
under review last week.
And some of those are in the tens of thousands because they can go backwards up to 10 years. Well, it can go back to 2012, they can go back 12 years, 13 years.
So do you have retroactive recovery on that?
We wrote a check for what, 50-some thousand dollars not too long ago?
It's based on the date of determination of the disability, and some people don't file right away, or it's appealed, and so whatever that
I see.
official determination date is, we have to go back.
Thank you.
So there's been a bill proposed for the last several years that would reimburse localities half of the relief if they have more than 1% of their tax base affected by this relief. And it hasn't gone anywhere. So we've stressed to our local legislators about that, but it is not something that, so it is, like I say, it's a blank check the General Assembly voted to approve for every locality just has a blank check sitting in front of them.
But we carry this as part of our legislative agenda this year. So, like you said, our
Every year.
representatives are aware of our position and struggle.
I would think the same issue is starting to have an impact in Northern Virginia as well.
Well, Stafford is the highest impacted locality in the state. And of course, you look at the ones like Prince William, there are a few positions below us. It's $30 million there.
$30 million.
$30 million. Stafford County is $22 million. Chesapeake is $20 million. I think Prince William was the largest one I saw. They had 4,800 veterans that qualify. Now for us, we were at 668 last year. We're at 746 so far this year. So, but if you is interested to note how many of the localities are either in Northern Virginia or Hampton Roads, and almost every locality in Hampton Roads is in this top tier of most impacted. And because the veterans, it's where people, they finish their career and they retire here and, they move around the region, but just about everyone, so York County is right behind us, Pocosin is right behind them, King George, James City is just a few spots below us, so just about every locality is impacted by, a large amount.
In the homes that we're referring on, you see the numbers, then you would think, well, 600 people, that's a very small percentage of the county's total population. It certainly isn't 3 or 5%. It's the homes that they can afford to buy.
Well, when you're not paying any taxes, you can afford to buy a bigger home. Yes, 10% of all the veterans live in Ben's Grant. It's about 70 homes in Ben's Grant are affected.
Ben's Grant.
So that's just one of our challenges. So for the highlights, the revenues, 3.3 million is the real property taxes. Now, if you'll note, go back. Remember that 3.3 million number. So 3.6 million is the estimated amount for FY26. It's virtually, this 5 cent is virtually the same amount of the amount that we're losing for our budget for these taxes that are exempted is just about the same amount as the tax increase.
I think that's an interesting point, in that, Youngkin has said he doesn't want any tax increases. He's been turning down that 1% sales tax for 4 years. So now, in effect, what has happened is Richmond has been able to give us a 5-cent tax increase.
Correct. That's right.
Without sharing in any of the burden.
And we absorbed it for several years, but the last couple of years, the amount of the increase is about a penny per year. So a penny of our tax base each year is being taken up by this program. So when you look at other highlights in the budget, we only had $712,000 in just normal growth. That's new construction. All just be new construction because we don't, we only reassess every 4 years. So this would just be growth in, additional houses, stores, industrial buildings, all of that combined. Sales tax, we increased $600,000. We've had a larger than normal increase in the amount of sales tax this year. Business equipment is things other than machinery and tools. So that would be business equipment, office furniture, just the things that are not associated with manufacturing. Our EMS revenues are up. Our staff is doing really well in collecting EMS revenues, so that is a $300,000 increase. Indirect costs, which is a program that Stephanie's office does to allocate those programs like my department, Bobby, Budget and Finance, to all the other agencies that we provide those services to. Public service taxes, that is Dominion, the gas company, solar farms, the bus company, all of those public agencies that are assessed directly by the state, and they tell us what the value is, and we assess it based on those values. But the, I believe it was the, not Sycamore Cross, but Cavalier is in there now. Of course, they're up and running, so they're part of the public service now. Comp board, that's where we get some money back from the state for the constitutional offices, sheriff, commissioner, treasurer, Commonwealth attorney, clerk of court, all of those things. We get some money back from them for their salaries. Delinquent tax, we have an increase there. M&T tax, we've had a decrease. And of course, that's all because each year they have to submit whatever equipment they bought versus what equipment they got rid of, and that goes up and down. And then the consumer utility tax is one that just went down as well.
I'm sorry, sir. The delinquent taxes, that's $150,000 increase in recovered delinquent taxes?
Correct. So taxes that are paid after the certain date, they're considered delinquent at that point. So if you're, so we collect about 97% of our taxes by June 30 every year. Let's say real estate taxes. For personal property, it's about 91, 92%. So anything collected after July 1 is treated as delinquent, so this is charged to a different account.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir.
So on the expenditure side, as we mentioned, the school system operating budget is $3.1 million. The cost of living for county employees is just almost $700,000. Again, the tax relief increase, $600,000, but that's a little lower than that previous number I showed you because as we were doing this, we were constantly recalculating that, and I had misunderstood that. I thought that the number the commissioner's office gave me was a calendar year, but it was actually a partial year of the fiscal year, so we found out it was only 9 months versus a year. Debt service went up a little over $500,000. That is the debt payment on the Carrollton HVAC system we issued bonds for back in October. So those are 20-year bonds for that heat and air system. Our health insurance went up about 9.5% this year. That's the county portion. Employees also have a portion of that. Our E911, part of it is a change in the way the comp board funding, and we had a person retire and a new person come on the civilian, so more of it got allocated to the sheriff's budget rather than E911. The regional jail, we're part of the Hampton Roads Regional Jail, which is us, Suffolk, Franklin, and now Hampton just joined us. And we had an increase there. We did a large pay study, and we had to raise salaries. Plus, they also lost revenue of about $500,000. It was a ruling that we could not charge above a certain amount for telephone commissions, and we were charging more because we could, and now they've lowered that amount to a lower number, so that cut $500,000 out of that budget. Our volunteer fire rescue departments, some of that is direct payments to them, some is just things we pay on their behalf, like insurance, fuel costs, and things. And then we had a decrease in transfer to public utilities of $200,000, and most of that is because of rate increase for water and sewer. And this was just the departments. We do a side-by-side comparison for all the different departments. It shows the current FY25 budget versus the FY26, and ones that where we had significant increases. Most of it was salary and benefits. We had one down here, professional services for document scanning. It's a one-time cost for the clerk's office. You can actually go back, so if Mr. Grice had a indiscretion when he was younger and he would like to have that charge sealed. Not picking on you, I'm just pointing out a possibility.
Did it frequently.
If it meets certain criteria, you can go back and have that charge sealed from public view. So they have boxes and boxes of old records. So they're trying to literally, as Bobby described, they're literally having to go back to these paper copies and white out unless you go through and scan them, and it'll make the time a lot easier to accomplish that task. And that is a state requirement. That is a state mandate. So again, these are some more departments. You can see the contributions of volunteer agencies here. There's about a 10% increase. And again, pretty much everything is salaries and benefits. A little bit of equipment here and inspections. And a lot of these departments are very small increases because it's just the salary increase. We had some, it was a decrease because we moved the software subscription over to the IT budget. And pretty much the same all through here. Communications, the postage is going up. We do all of our mailing from one central department. The tax relief I mentioned earlier here. And then we had some increase in some of the nonprofits, but this is a small number. Western Tidewater Free Clinic, they actually had a decrease in the current year. When we asked them about that this year, they admitted that they had made an error last year, but they didn't want to, after we'd already done the budget, they didn't want to bring it up, so it's more of a catch-up from them for last year. So our overall budget is up 5.6 million, a little over 5%. But the problem is our revenue growth is not enough to keep up with the just general growth in the overall cost.
Quick question, Randy. The 545,301, is that the servicing of the Carrollton monies that was bought?
Correct. That's
Just Carrollton HVAC?
That's the only thing we borrowed money for was the Carrollton HVAC.
That was around 8 or 9 million?
7.4.
7.4. And how much are they asking for a new bus terminal, bus?
4 million. That was the middle range. I think the brand new building was more like 10 million or so. So the addition was in the 4 million. It was 4 million.
Because I know that we struggled and did a lot of refinancing, even in some cases taking tax deferred bonds and switching them over to taxable bonds, so that we could keep our debt service below 13 million, or at $13 million. And here we are again creeping over that, and now we're being asked, you'll get to that I'm sure later, but that's a creepage that I hate seeing.
Well, our debt service, we have 2 more years of pretty level service, and then in 2028, it's going to start dropping precipitously. It's going to go down $1 million in 2028 because of the way it was structured years ago. So it actually went up, plateaued, we've been at a plateau, and then a couple more years, it's going to start dropping pretty dramatically.
But that was when we were looking at replacing the west side.
No, this predated any of that. So this was something that.
No, I mean that drop off.
Oh yeah, well, so the county had restructured its debt back in 2011 or 12, and so and that's where we had the increase, and then we've refinanced some other stuff in the meantime, and it lowered the overall cost, but the plateau effect was still there.
We're not in danger of going over the
Oh, no,
13 million in
The 13 million in,
bonds, the percentage that we try to stay under
Debt ratio.
leverage.
so our policy limitation, we're not, as far as the 4% for debt assessed value and then 12% government expenditures, no.
We're not close to the cap on that,
I mean,
but that's not.
relatively, no.
But that's not where we wanted to be, and that's where you were working
Well,
not
I
to
mean,
be.
I'm not sure when you set the 13 million, but one thing to consider is the growth in your budget over that time. So, I mean, the cost of things have gone up. So, maybe look at it as far as, did we stick to a reasonable increase over that 13 million? Not that I'm a proponent for keep adding debt by any means, but just to keep it in perspective, what that 13 million meant when you set it,
And we are paying off about, I think this year will be $8 million in principal, so a large portion of that, over 50% is principal. This just shows the regional tax rates, and we just picked the ones that were in close proximity to us. So some are large cities and some are smaller counties, but and some of these are 25, some of them are 26, so not everybody's exactly submitted their budgets yet. Southampton and Surrey currently have the lowest tax rates in the area at 71 cents. Of course, we're currently at 73 cents, so we're only 2 cents above their current rate, and that's what their current rates are. York County is next. They are currently at 74. They've proposed to go up 4 cents, so our rate of 5 cents and their rate of 4 cents would put us even at 78 cents apiece. And then you get to James City, they're the next county at 83. And then from there on up, you start, of course, the two towns are, that's the county and the town rate combined. So that's why it looks, it's higher, because they have their own rate on top of our rate. And then when you get to the cities around us, all of those are over $1. So the city rates are dramatically higher than county rates in the region. And Bobby was just telling me that Newport News just sent out their reassessments, and they're not proposing to increase their rate, staying at $1.18, but it's the equivalent of 4 cents. So if they took their rate and made it revenue neutral, it would go down 4 cents. But so it's essentially a 4 cent tax increase. So that's traditionally.
The last 3 years, it equals 25% increase.
Yeah. So that's, the cities, pretty much all the cities do a annual reassessment. And so, and a lot of them, they'll just, unless it's a really large increase, I have seen them a couple times they went down. A lot of times they will keep the rate the same, and that's how their budget is funded, is because they just keep it at that, amount.
Because of property value growth.
Because the property values go up, correct.
We voted recently to keep that at the board level, to keep that at a 4-year reassessment, because, we grappled with that a couple months ago.
Yeah, so it's really just a matter of which one you want to do, whether you want to, look at the rate during that 4-year period, or, have annual or maybe, every other year increases in the rate, or updates to the valuation. So, because we've seen, you can just look at in the paper, they do it once a month. They'll publish all the houses have sold, and if you go back and look at the values from the 23 values, pretty much every one of them are drastically higher than what the 23 values were. So people, there was a lot of sticker shock when the 23 values came out, but in almost every case, the values are still far higher. The sale value is still far higher than what the assessed value is by the county.
And there's still a shortage of housing.
I had a board member years ago going through a reassessment, and somebody had called him to complain about their house being valued, and it was waterfront property. And this particular board member was a real estate investor. He would buy and sell things. So they were complaining to him about the value, and he says, well, I'm familiar with your property. He says, I'll tell you what, I'll buy it for the assessed value. And the guy said, well, I'm not going to sell it for that. He said, well, I'll give you 10% more than the assessed value. He's like, I'm not going to sell it for that either. He says, then you really don't have a problem. And because he was trying to make a point, because a lot of times you'd hear people would complain and say, well, I'll sell it to you. In this case, he made an offer to the guy, and he wouldn't sell it. So a lot of times, we don't like the value sometimes if we're paying the taxes, but a lot of times we wouldn't sell it for that price either.
Speaking of homes, just before you go off of that, I know I asked this question last Thursday, but it's in your memo to the board. In 2024, there were 241 new housing starts. And in 2023, there were 211.
Correct.
So going from 23 to 24, only a 30 more housing starts than the previous year. So, when citizens talk to you about explosive growth, I don't know that 30 new housing starts in 1 year is considered explosive.
And last
Additional
year,
30 houses.
An additional 30.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think the year before that, we actually had a slight decrease in housing starts. So we've stayed right around that 200 to 250 range for some time. And this is a Don question, but I think back in the early 2000s, we were growing about 500 new houses per year. Yeah. So it's about half the rate that we were growing 20 years ago as far as new home starts.
And almost that 30 house addition with the VA benefits, taxes for,
You get nothing new for them.
you got absolutely nothing for it.
Just like a nonprofit hospital.
So here's the capital budget summary. So revenues, I want to just hold this view because people say, well, I thought we could get more from the solar farm. I'll get there in just a second. So we have received some money for solar farm, but we're also due another payment for the Sycamore Cross Solar Farm after they receive approval of their site plan. And so that's another $1.5 million. We're proposing $4 million from fund balance. We have some school proffers, approximately $760,000. I talked to Chris and Theo recently about there was going to be some money left over from the Carrollton HVAC project. Originally, we talked about $600,000. I don't know if it's exactly there or not. I've asked him to give me a number on that. And then proposed bond amount of $6 million. So it'd be almost $12.9 million.
Quick question. Fund balance of $4 million, that's the rainy day funds as I refer to them,
Correct.
okay?
Right. We were at 26 million this past
Currently at
year.
26 million?
Well, we were at June 30, last year, 26 million.
26 million. And you're gonna take 4 of that away.
So that would still keep us well above our goal. Our goal is 15%. This will still keep us in the 20-some% range.
And that equates to roughly 2.5 months?
So 8% would be a month, yeah. So it'd be about 2.5 months, correct? Of operating cash.
Versus what they have in Smithfield, which is 14 months.
That would be a large amount if we had 14 months. So I had my word. Yeah, I did. There we go. Okay, so expenditure side, as we talked about in the schools, the bus garage at $4 million, 5 school buses, a total of $763,000. The band room, and if you remember the $760,000 in proffers, the reason we can use the $760 is because the band room will give us more school capacity at the high school. We'll be switching over to the old boiler room, moving the band room over there, which is just a big empty space, and then we can the schools can reutilize. They were former classrooms up at the front of the building. For the band room, they can reuse those for instructional or other instructional spaces.
You can also use the 600,000 left over from the bond issuance for
Correct.
the HVAC.
That's right. Weapons detection system, 180, that's to finish out the rest of the elementary schools, I believe.
High school?
Is it high
Middle
school?
schools, and middle schools.
Middle schools, okay.
Middle schools.
And then the ADA bleachers, 125,000. So the school capital is about $6.5 million.
On the weapons detection systems, that's currently deployed at the high school and is going to be deployed now to the middle school.
Yes, they're both high schools.
Both high schools.
Okay, so not to reflect on sobering news, but I think we all remember the tragedy that happened in Newport News. It was at Richmond High School, and that was an elementary school. One of the bases for the suit against the school board is that they failed to implement detection systems at the elementary school level, and they viewed that as a term of negligence. Now, where that suit goes, we don't know, but it's something worth, I think, monitoring maybe as we go forward.
I don't think there had been any mention of weapons detection. I mean, there hadn't been any weapons detection systems here at all until after that situation happened. I think it was more of a, they had told the principal that there was one of the children had a
There's
weapon.
several elements of negligence in
Yeah.
the case.
So I'm not aware of anyone having weapons detection systems before that incident happened. They may have, but
At the
certainly
elementary school level.
not at the elementary school level.
But that is an element of the suit against the board members, so it's something I think to
Yeah.
monitor.
I think the biggest issue there was just the question of whether people had been alerted and they didn't take action, maybe. That's my recollection of it anyway.
Richnick Elementary School. isn't it?
Yeah.
Richnick Street.
So on fire rescue, so here I'll go back to this is the $2 million here. We've already received $2 million in capital funds from the solar farm, from Sycamore Cross for the initial payment. So we received $1.5 million proffer amount for the revenue sharing agreement, and then there was a separate $500,000 that could be used for community improvements. So we already have that in hand. So I'm going to be proposing to the board at the next meeting to go ahead and do a budget amendment so we can go ahead and order the fire rescue, because this happened to be the same amount as the fire rescue proposed amount for FY '26. Right now, it's just a matter of who gets their order in first. And so it just gets us, it can get us in a little bit quicker in the assembly line. And so in the current budget, Windsor Fire had an engine replacement scheduled. Windsor Rescue had a medic replacement, and then Isle of Wight had a medic replacement as well. So it just happened to be the same amount, so we're going to recommend we go ahead and do that outside of the regular budget process.
And that 2 million is in hand.
We got that in hand. It's in the checking, or in the account right now.
Randy, you might want to note the amount of lead time. on those
Yes, 3 years to build an engine now, and 2 years to build a medic. So it's really important to get there on this, get in line as quickly as possible. In fact, some of the companies now are allowing you to say, look, we don't have the money yet, but we're going to be replace this one in 2 years. We'd like to get on the list. And they go in and slot you in on they basically have a order list. So that if you decide not to buy it for some reason, when it comes your turn, they can just sell it to someone else. They're that much in demand right now.
How long does it take to get a school bus? Because the ones we authorized for this year, they still
12
don't
months.
have.
We're getting it 12.
12 months. But, yeah, the fire rescue equipment is just really, used to take about a year or so, but now after COVID, it's gone to 3 years. And we've got 2 medics right now that have taken, going to be close to 2 years by the time we get those, I believe. Public buildings. So we had money in the budget last year for Carrollton Fire Department, an addition for sleeping quarters. We had to move that money over to Rushmere because the Rushmere bids came in higher and Rushmere was next in line. So we're putting that back in the budget. At least this would just get the design work started and do some of the preliminary work. The Windsor Library, we've already started the design work on that. This would build a new building in front of the Windsor Town Center rather than trying to add on to the existing building that's more like a residential structure. We're receiving bids in a week or so for the new roof and HVAC units at the Smithfield Library. Of course, it's really on top of the Camp Community College's space, but it's all one building there. And then we have a couple of buildings that we had previously designed and planned over at Public Works and Public Utilities, and this would finish out those 2 projects. So about $3.2 million for public buildings.
And we've gone out and really milked the availability of any grants.
Yes, these are not buildings that, well, we had submitted a grant.
I would think the library might be one.
We had submitted, well, actually, we have there's a deadline Monday for congressionally directed grants through Representative Kagan's office. So we're going to be submitting some of these projects for that. We had submitted the Carrollton Fire Department as a grant project last year and was not funded. So we had submitted that one. The library's come up in the meantime, so that's probably one we'll probably go for this year because we have a little more information on that one now. And of course, we did get a grant for the new water tank behind Riverside Hospital of $1,250,000. So that's under that. Those bids are actually due first week of May, I believe it is. May 15th, maybe 8th.
15th or 17th.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
My only concern about the overall cost of the Windsor Library is that we're not real sure what skin in the game the town of Windsor is willing to put in, and or how much they'll give us towards the cost of the new library as a result of selling of the current. Because we own the property underneath the library, but they own the building.
Opposite. They own the property, we own the building.
They own the property, we own the building.
Mhm.
So, 2.18 million. I'm kind of wondering how much the town of Windsor is willing to kick in for that. And we don't know that yet.
Historically?
Mr. Keaton, quick question, just edification, the Smithfield Library and Camp Community College complex, that's also connected to the Luter Family Y. Do we own that, and does the YMCA lease that?
We own the whole thing, yeah, we own the whole
Okay.
complex there. So this is the portion of the old high school that is not used by the Y. So
Right.
this is, so you had, basically separation of the buildings. And so the library is on the first floor, campus on the second floor, and then everything else in that complex is operated by the Y.
And they're
$1
responsible.
lease or something like that, or? Or-
Something like
Yeah.
that. But they've invested heavily in that.
Yeah. They maintain their portion of the building. We don't have any maintenance there.
The internals,
Right.
not any of the externals.
Well, parking lots, I mean,
They don't contribute to the parking lot.
I know when the YMCA built the parking lot behind the pool, they paid for it. The county didn't pay for that improvement.
The YMCA paid for it.
Correct.
Yeah, what I'm saying is Camp Community College,
Oh,
it takes care of their internals on the second
Oh,
floor.
yeah, I thought you were talking the Y, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But we maintain the elevator, the HVAC, the
Right.
roof, windows, everything else, and we charge Camp Community College zero.
Right.
right.
Next, we have some in there for Parks and Rec. The biggest chunk of this is to finish out Bradby Park. And then we have some playground equipment replacements. We had some that were, in really bad need of replacement. And so we've been gradually doing that at playgrounds. We've done the one in Carsville. We've done the one at Nike Park. Now we're going to do the one at Riverview, and
And Windsor will
Windsor will be the next one as well. Utilities, $2 million. This is one we really don't have a good idea of how much, what the cost of the projects are. We just know we need a lot of money in utilities. Of course, you probably heard about the problems with the Windsor vacuum system, that we have a lot of problems there. A contractor went in and damaged a lot of our lines. Of course, they also did some damage to the Windsor system and water system. Windsor kicked them out. We're pursuing them in court now as we speak. But we have also have a lot of other issues with the way that system was designed, and we have to make some major improvements there. We also have a number of pump stations throughout the county that are at the end of their life cycle. Quite a few in Gatlin Point. They all were built at the same time, and they were all built at the same design, and we're having to go through and replace those. So those are in the $400,000 range apiece. So we're just putting a couple million in the utilities every year to try to take care of some of these projects. So altogether, that brings our total capital budget to just a little under 13 million. And so a little less than half of that would be new debt, and the rest of it would be cash or leftover bonds.
Assuming the same interest rate, you're talking about an additional about $450,000 of additional debt.
Probably. One of the things that this year, because of the cash flow, because of the cash amount we have, and of course the time for some of these projects to come to fruition, you probably wouldn't need to issue any bonds until maybe the end of next year. So it's not that the bonds would have to be issued in the fall. It would be, might even push it out until to that fall in July, which would put the first, usually the debt, once you issue the debt, the first debt payment's a year later. So that would push it into another fiscal year. So it was just, I think it was just, the bonds wouldn't have to be issued right away. Utilities and stormwater funds. So right now, we're looking at a water rate increase of 66 cents per 1,000 gallons and a 43-cent increase in the monthly meter fee, which ends up being a little less than $4 per household per month if you use a standard 5,000 gallons. And that's what we always use that. So it'd be about a 4.5% increase in the overall rate for water users. Now, we had a 4% increase just from the Western Tidewater Water Authority, so that's part of our reason, or a good portion of the reason for that. Sewer, we have not increased sewer in the last several years, so we're proposing a $2 increase in the sewer. It'll go from $7 per thousand to $9 per thousand, so you're looking at about a $10 increase there per household per month. and then a $500 increase in the water and sewer connection fees. Right now it's $4,500 for water, $4,000 for sewer. It would go up each one of those would go up $500. It'd be $5,000 and $4,500. And of course, a lot of those are paid by developers. We have a few people that, fill in lots that are coming in and, proposing to add a lot in for an existing area, but the vast majority of that is paid by the developers. So that was the same presentation was given at the board meeting the other night.
Has the 5 cent proposed increase, how's that been received in the public domain? I haven't seen much chatter on it yet.
They love it.
What's that?
They love it.
Well, we haven't had the public hearing. We haven't had the public hearing.
You just
yet.
hired him to be a new administrator?
Yeah. So we just got, this is Randy's, staff and director's initial presentation. We just heard it Thursday night, last week, and so the public hearing is
24th.
April 24th.
And I think it was an article in Smithfield Times
Yeah, there was an
over the
article in the
weekend.
paper
It was
Summarized your presentation.
good, very accurate. So, I haven't looked online or anything, so I'm not on.
Well, keep an eye online for us, Mike, because, with every passing year, I think fewer and fewer people come to the meetings and give their feedback. They mostly talk about it online, so I'm sure there will be comments.
We all know how, that our body politic today tends to knee jerk to the hair trigger almost to the worst potential consideration of these things. Is there any messaging we as a board want to carry with this, or as a committee, after the board of supervisors renders their deliberations? I ask that because
Until they get to that point, I would say that would be, the message is that the board is still reviewing it,
Yeah.
They need time to absorb it and make their recommendations.
I would agree with that. I mean, we're looking line by line, and we'll have work sessions every Thursday from now until May 15th. Mr. Grice remembers that. So, we're meeting weekly about it and having other departmental meetings. So certainly I wouldn't expect that this is the exact final form that the budget for 25-26 will take. It never does take that exact form, but
I would be shocked if it did.
But the team, certainly, the staff, department directors, Keaton, as well as Mr. Berry, they do a lot of work to get us to this point and put their best foot forward. And so we're in, deliberations and consideration, and we'll know more about what the public, thinks is thumbs up, thumbs down after the 24th.
Yeah, I mean, it is sort of interesting. So I sort of see a big picture that, okay, you have an audit, right? The audit was exceptional. So it says the data that you have to work from is very credible, right? The data's credible. Then you have the outside, the county agencies, the treasurer, those kind of things where we don't have the same kind of view, perhaps, as we do with the county, right? We had some negative findings and things that, so how does that all wrap and tie together to support a credible budget proposal? To me, the core of it is pretty solid, it seems.
Yeah, and as a board, we've been really keeping an eye on collections percentage because, as you all know, if treasurer's office isn't collecting the money that's being, levied, then that's a problem, right?
Seem to be the areas you go focus on, really, right?
Right, so I think, that's really where the audit committee comes in, is to continue the work on, like having Ms. Sly come next month and looking at investments and where things are invested. I know the town of Smithfield has made some changes with their new, finance folks. And so they've been able to realize some gains in investments. Not that, I don't know, after last Friday, the way my investments look, I don't know if that's gonna be, I don't know if that's gonna be possible or not.
Don't look.
There's the investments that are legal by government agencies
are much more restricted than the stock market.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank goodness, right?
But to continue those conversations with Julie about, KPIs, right, and goals for her department and supporting the treasurer's office in that way, I think that's healthy. So, yeah, I think we're doing our part with that. I wanted you all to know what the upcoming financial picture was and, some of the details behind the budget and some of the discussions that are going on in the next month and a half. So I appreciate Mr. Keaton for coming and presenting that.
Well, one thing I would like to know, you mentioned the collection percentage. So we have a very good collection percentage, especially on the real estate side, roughly around 97%. So I use 97% as the collection
So
estimate.
what
when
would the cash value be of that 3%, round numbers? Just off the top of your head.
$1 million, $1.5 million.
Well, so they end up collecting that, and part of that delinquent collections, we
Is
saw
that
that
number.
number budgeted to
Well,
go
yeah.
up this year.
I mean, good thing.
Yeah,
And-
and you're going to eventually collect that other 3%. You're just not going to collect it by June 30.
Right away.
That's the difference, so it's the cutoff is what you would collect, well, you got a little bit of run out,
Yeah.
but at June 30. So that's why we always budget for the delinquent taxes, because we're always collecting the previous year's taxes. But, yeah, it'd be another few $100,000 if you could collect 100%. Nobody's going to collect 100% by June 30, but 97% is pretty daggone close. And staff has heard me say this. This is the highest collection percentage I've ever worked, where a locality collects this much in a year. Now on the personal property, and one thing since Ms. Wells has been doing the collection percentages and breaking out the real estate from the personal property, we had not been doing that in the past. Personal property is around 91.5% because vehicles are movable and you can leave the community and we can't track you down as easily, or money doesn't come in for those quite as quickly. So we were able to break that out, and we estimated 91.5% for the personal property collection rate versus the real estate.
Does that differ from historical percentages, though?
It was never broken
Oh,
out
it was never
before, so
broken.
we couldn't, we were trying to guesstimate the personal property and real estate, and she started breaking it down, even breaking it down to the December billing versus the June billing and things like that. So it's a lot more data we can utilize in trying to estimate that. Because you can do the calculation, figure out what the total bill is, but then you got to figure out what we're going to actually collect by June 30.
That
And
was
we don't like to overestimate that because that's,
very good. Thank you, Mr. Keaton.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda under new business is duties of accounting/finance versus treasurer's office. I think maybe, did we decide we have copies of that or just on the computer? Ms. Wells did send me these on email earlier today. Thank you. Thank you for making copies. We had said the last meeting we wanted to review these duties. And just while he passes those out, at one of our recent Board of Supervisors business meetings, we did approve the cash management handling procedures. So, with everyone's review, including Ms. Wells, Mr. Berry, and also Ms. Sly's approval, the board took that recommendation from the audit committee, and we did approve those. So we can write that if we're taking note of accomplishments, we can say that's a audit committee accomplishment that we set out in our first meeting in October of last year to do.
good.
All right, so Ms. Wells, do you mind telling us what we're looking at here? Just reminding us.
So this is cash management duties separated by who is going to be responsible for them, or what office is going to be responsible for them with the county. Typically, the cash management duties lies with the treasurer's office, but with her being a new officer in that position, the finance department kind of has picked up a few things, a little more than a few things, but a few things to try to help out. And earlier on, probably 6 months or more ago, maybe 9 months ago, reviewed this with Julie. and she made some corrections, more things that she would like to stay with our office. This hasn't been reviewed recently by her, so maybe her thoughts have changed. One of the things that we talked about, Ms. Roundtree, me, Mr. Keaton, and Julie Sly had a meeting, and we talked about possibly her taking back over things like the bank reconciliation and things of that nature, and she didn't say she was not for that. I think if she has the staff who is trained in that, she'd be willing to take it back over. I think the desire is for the county's budget and finance office to keep the accountability for collection accountability reports, and so all of the accruals and things of that nature for accounts receivable of taxes, personal property taxes, and real estate would stay with the finance department. But this is how it's broken out right this minute. It's not a formal agreement at the moment, but it is how we've been operating for the most part. So the first section is the treasurer's things that she's going to initiate, reconcile, and post. Then it goes to the county's finance responsibilities, utilities department, and then schools. The schools hasn't said yay or nay, hasn't really given their blessing for that piece of it, but I know that I've talked to Ms. DeVary about it briefly through email in the past, but other than that.
You're talking about the bank reconciliation? Yeah.
So this is, as far as I know, the current desire of the treasurer for what she wants to handle and what she would like for the finance offices to handle.
As a point of clarification, Stephanie, everything that's currently listed here under county initiate, reconcile, post, these dozen or so tasks, were these previously accomplished by the Treasury Department?
I don't have them highlighted for which ones were her department, which ones weren't, but I can briefly tell you which ones we already did. The first bullet point, no, we did not do that. That was Treasurer's Department. Reconciling daily receipts they did. Posting journal entries for her department, which she has been doing. She's been initiating and posting her own journal entries, so maybe she's ready for that to come off. Interest distribution, that has not actually been entered into the Munis system. That's a new process that's in the works. Writing the checks, we have always done, the Budget and Finance Department has always actually written the checks. We send the cash disbursements journal to the treasurer for approval, and then we send them out. Bank recs was treasurer. Reconciliation of AR was treasurer. Reconciling direct borrowing accounts, proceeds held by financial institutions, that has been done by both offices in the partnership. Approve and post year-end accruals was treasurer's office. Approve unclaimed property journal entries. We did post that journal entry in the past for unclaimed property. Backup managing accounts, no, we did not. I've been helping her with that. There's a lot of new accounts that she wasn't familiar with. We weren't familiar with, so trying to manage that and make sure that new users and et cetera are put in there is important, but she has been doing some of that as well. So right now that's kind of a joint. And then the year-end accruals, she also, or treasurer, excuse me, not she, but the treasurer's office used to do that.
I'm putting checks and X's. I missed interest distribution.
So the interest distribution was something that I picked up on that hadn't been done properly, and so I'm trying to initiate a process to do that correctly. So that has not been implemented yet, but it will be before the end of the fiscal year. Interest distribution is where the revenue for the interest that comes in gets posted to whatever, not department, but fund has the cash in the account. It's always been assumed that that was general fund money, but, you know, if it's EDA money, that should be their interest. If it's capital projects money, then we can post that to the capital projects account.
If I could interject, one thing we found during the budget is, as I was asking the question, I said, our interest is really low this year. hadn't been posted yet. So it's there, it just hasn't been posted to the revenue accounts.
No.
Oh, is that right?
So we were having that discussion, we were trying to estimate revenues. We couldn't tell how much revenue we've received because it hasn't been posted yet.
That comes in with the bank reconciliation. If bank recs weren't done, you wouldn't post the interest.
Right.
And the bank recs from August to December are currently with, being worked on by a contract employee that we got through VML VACO. But it's been current January, February, March. So while the bank recs are current, there's still things that need to be posted by her department, corrections that need to be made and things of that nature. So there are some things that are still behind, but at least we know based on the bank reconciliation what needs to happen.
Okay, so back to this tickler list. So these things that you're doing now on behalf of Treasury that I guess maybe 2 years ago you weren't doing on behalf of Treasury, correct? We asked her the last session when she was here, what would be goals and objectives? Would it be reasonable to expect that at some point these would sunset from your office and return back to her office? Would that be a fair expectation?
All of them except for, I believe, the desire is for the, sorry, I'm drawing a blank, reconciliation of taxes and the report of collections would stay with the Budget and Finance Department.
Okay. And does she understand that at some point these need to translate or transfer back to her responsibility?
I believe she got that impression during our meeting.
Yeah, there's some discussion over an FTE, I think, that we transferred from the treasurer's office to the finance department, right? To handle some of these things, so I think that'll be a discussion.
Right, and part of the discussion is having that employee that was transferred to my department to do these things be half her employee and half my employee, because that employee would continue to do the reconciliation of the taxes and then also the bank reconciliations for her. So that is the plan.
Okay. And I got the sense from her presentation that there was, her predecessor just so intuitively and innately understood these processes that she could do these in her sleep. And that was part of her learning curve that she had to climb. And that's probably, some of these tasks probably are represented by that here.
I mean, that's oversimplifying. I wouldn't say that anybody could do that in their sleep. It's a very hands-on task.
There weren't written processes.
Okay.
The previous, that's what I understood, is the previous treasurer didn't have all those processes written, that's why.
Well,
It's
I
a
mean,
curated skill set
It is a curated.
So she took a lot of corporate memory with her.
that the new treasurer didn't bring,
Yeah.
so this is part of us.
Okay.
And then, of course, the dismissal of staff.
Right.
But am I right in saying, did I hear you say that everything on the list, with the exception of reconciliation of AR for taxes, is something that has been adjudicated to your department?
Reconcile direct borrowing of accounts, approve and post unclaimed property, and she'd like to keep reconciliation of AR for taxes, yeah. I have marked, there was 3. The other things,
We write the checks. That's always the finance department. Accounts payable is in the finance department.
Okay.
She blesses them, but we actually perform those duties.
so that one too.
Did I hear you correctly when you said that the county has a contracted person in to help catch up on the bank recs? But you didn't include the schools?
You have catch up on your bank recs too?
Yeah, they haven't been done.
Ah,
So I could either wait till year end when the audit comes and they go, where are your bank recs?
are yours
They've never
being
been
kept-
our responsibility.
Right. Oh, because the treasurer's office used to do it?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
I think I misunderstood from our prior discussion, but we can talk about that. I mean,
Are
it's not
yours-
that they can't help.
Are yours current for January, like for this year, or none of them are current?
No.
Okay. Yeah, maybe you ladies can talk about that.
Well, I've been trying to work on them myself, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
One last question,
We don't have
Stephanie.
as big of a finance department.
Right.
Last question. During Ms. Wells, Ms. Slade's testimony a month ago, Attorney Jones had read from part of the state code, duties and responsibilities of the treasurer. So would the shifting of these things back more closely align with what Mr. Jones had
Yes.
recited?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any potential during the upcoming audit that there could be any kind of conflict or it perceived that there's insufficient double checking on any of these activities or?
No, remember we asked, and I think the auditor said on the phone, as long as it's being done. He doesn't care if Stephanie or Julie does it, or Lisa, he doesn't care who does it, just wants it done. There was one item that we talked to her about when she came last month, Julie, that she still wasn't doing. I think it was the bank reconciliations, actually, that could cause us a problem if that's not caught up and done. It sounds like Ms.
It
Wells.
was her deposits for the state.
Oh,
That
that's right.
issue, the reports and the reconciliation of that piece of it, yes. The bank reconciliations will be caught up. The problem is, will they be posted? And that's still her responsibility. And so we're still sending her the information to post the items that she needs to post. But we're working on it daily. Hopefully that'll be caught up. The auditor will be here the first week in June for his preliminary audit, second week in June, which we actually pushed back because of some of the issues that we have of getting these things caught up. Usually they come late April, early May.
What I recall, her answer with regard to posting was that now that she understands that it has to be done daily and not monthly or quarterly, she said she was in compliance.
It's better. It's improved, yeah.
I think that was the state revenue, is that right? Yeah, that was,
But the other things, I mean, they have gotten better. It's not as on point as I would like for it to be, by any means, but, you know, it's until she's trained up, so to speak, and everybody kind of gets on board with who's doing what and who can do what. I mean, there's a lot of flux with her department, you know, she's got new people, she's new, you know, so there's a lot of moving negative parts, you know, and trying to push that forward and get that up and rolling, and it's not gonna happen overnight.
So I appreciate all the questions on this cash management duties. I'm certain you guys want to review this offline, and then maybe we add it to what we talked to Ms. Sly about next month when she comes.
I have one more question,
Yeah.
Chair, if that's okay.
Sure.
Thinking down the road, assuming if she runs again, doesn't win, or she decides to not run again, there could be a new incumbent. Can we expect to go through this again? Another learning curve, and
It's always a possibility.
yeah, and then sort of a larger level, I guess, there are several elected positions where somebody could come in and there's a learning curve. I guess that's just life in democracy, as Mr. Churchill would say.
Let's just hope Stephanie doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm not perfect by any means, you know, there's always a daily struggle of making sure that you're on your P's and Q's. I mean, obviously, Liesel's telling me I didn't contact her about this man that's helping me with our bank rec. So, you know, nobody's perfect. It's just a daily try as hard as you can and get as much done as you can as accurately as possible. So, you know, I don't want to hold myself up too high, but, you know, we're trying.
No,
We're trying.
absolutely understand and.
But I appreciate that. Thank you.
And Ms. Sly did say that it was her intent to memorialize processes and procedures so that she could leave it, that was her hope, to leave it better than she found it for the next person. All right, thank you all for that. Just briefly, because I don't want to hold you all too much longer, we did say at the beginning of our charter for the audit committee that at some point we would take up discussion on internal audit activity. So I wanted to briefly just discuss people's thoughts on, like, if we did do internal audit, where would we start? Obviously, an internal audit function takes time and staff and resources. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that, as well as, you know, what departments or exposure points you all think that maybe should be audited or checked into. I mean, certainly procurement and contracting is one that you know, kind of comes to mind. Certainly any department that handles cash. We've done some work on cash management, handling procedures, just to review internal processes there. And, you know, an internal audit is mostly made or developed so that you kind of surface issues before they're an issue, and or surface issues before they're caught up in a real audit and in an external audit. And it makes sure that what we say we're going to do according to policies and procedures, that we are following our own rules, if you will. So any thoughts outside of possibly procurement and departments who handle cash?
I have a procedural question, Mr. Jones. If, say we have an internal audit and something needs to be presented to the board as an issue, can you do that in closed session, or does it have to be discussed completely in open session?
I'd have to see the individual item.
Okay.
And see if I can find a
Okay,
exception under the FOIA.
right, okay,
Really
Right.
depends on what it is.
right. Because if there's a finding of some type, you know, it would be, that's a question that I have about how you go about addressing that item.
Now, I would imagine that those audits would be filtered from this committee to the board, right, as a higher level report.
Could be.
Requesting
For internal
action.
audit. Mhm.
I think it's the approach. Are you approaching it as in the context of an inspector general concept? Or what?
Well, lots of localities have auditors that report to an audit committee and ultimately to the board. So that's a normal process for internal audits. Right now, the internal auditor is my department, so, and we do come across things at times, but now that there's an audit committee, some of those things could be reported to the audit committee, but if they, you know, don't rise to the level of being a public item, that's why I asked about it. Because, I mean, I could report some things that I may come across.
Do you think we could talk next month about, and at our next meeting, about just blinded examples or generalities of things that come about?
Items or the,
At least topics?
sure, you want me to?
Cash evidence has been a big topic. That's what we've been addressing for several years, you know, because initially the fair handled a lot of cash and how the processes for that, and now we've had other, so that has been ongoing, you know, trying to tighten those procedures up.
And our P-card purchase card program, a lot of times, and it's ironic, because I think some departments might think that they're getting picked on because something will come up, and I'll say, okay, this looks like it could be a potential problem, and then that department gets 3 emails from me like XXX is wrong, right? So they're like, oh, you're picking on me all of a sudden. So I have to remind them, hey, you know, this is not just for you, this is everybody. It just has come to light and looking at other things. So it's what comes across our desk and say, you know, we say, okay, this looks like it could be a problem. We should probably check a few other things. And so they get questioned. What was it recently that we had a question about something that somebody purchased, and it had something to do with a recreation item. I'm like, these are Barbies, or are we supposed to purchase Barbies, for instance?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it's continuous quality improvement. You always hear that term, maybe the old term, but yeah, so they're constantly tweaking, you know, policies and saying, oh, you know, and a lot of times as you find things, it's like, well, that's probably not the way we should be doing it. Let's write a procedure and correct that. I always think of internal auditor as someone who's proactive, you know, who's going out searching for them, digging for things. But then I've also read horror stories of internal auditors that didn't really know what they were looking for, and then they get, you know, you hear some big media things about that. So, I think that tends to be on a bigger scale, you know, larger organizations where it's so much easier things to fall through the cracks. I think our size is such that, you know, Stephanie and them can keep an eye on most things, and then we can, you know, direct that a change. I mean, gift cards were example years ago on the P card. You know, we were using, you know, different departments had little giveaway things. Well, gift cards are a no-no in most all cases, because it can easily be mishandled or, you know, or misappropriated things. Cash was a big issue.
We had a W-9 issue a couple years ago where W-9s weren't being submitted for anybody that was getting a check from the county because it was, say, X dollars, it wasn't up to $600. Well, anytime you're going to pay somebody, you don't know that it will or won't get to $600 in most instances, so we automatically have started now requiring W-9s, and that didn't used to be the case, for instance.
Chair Roundtree, is your question around this, are you thinking about something more formal, something more independent, something that reports to the board of supervisors, this audit function? I'm trying to understand a little bit more about your.
Yeah, I think I'm wanting just to check into it further. So I think if next month, if you all are okay, having Stephanie give us a little more formal presentation on things that they found, maybe that.
Well, you know, we're blessed with some people that run our county that have tremendous integrity, but every once in a while, there's somebody may came along that, who knows, right? So I'm intrigued by this idea.
Okay.
And it's especially the independent structure and the reporting authority. You don't want to bury the QI guy working for operations in the shipyard. That never works, right, Dale?
I don't want to add another layer or several layers of overhead either.
Well, that brings up a good point, because internal auditors don't work in, say, a finance department. They work directly for a board. So that's a good example.
Like an IG.
Obviously, I'm auditing myself, you know, so, and the other departments.
But I also think that it's, right now, we are laying additional work on you.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Oh, God, I got to do this when?
And so I'm thinking, you almost need a warm body that,
Not a cold one.
I don't know. But, so it's going to be an interesting, approach. I think we have to decide, how do we want to approach it? How do we want to assign it? You know, studies and so on and so forth. And some studies are going to take some time. And we don't want to build a fiefdom. We want something that's structured very, very simply.
Okay, well, we'll keep noodling it. We'll put it on the agenda for next
I will
month.
point out, understand that we always have a saying that trust is not a form of internal control.
That's true.
Who's we?
I've used that before too. You use it a lot. Yeah. I've heard that for years. So,
Oh, okay, I thought I invented
yeah.
it.
But that is, I mean, you know, we do, you know, we do have some really good people, but you can never assume that, you know, trust is a matter of internal control.
Dang, can't get no
Is there a model for this audit activity for counties, municipalities approximately sized as us that maybe we could look at as a best management, or,
I'm sure we could.
you know, a model that we could look at?
I would assume ones of our size don't have an audit.
But the big question, I think, would be the juice, is the juice worth the
Right.
squeeze? You know, or you could spend more money trying to find $100 than.
Right,
you know,
and which is another thing that we talk about a lot, too.
you know.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to grapple with. I think it's a good representation of that. All right, I'm gonna go around the room. Anything else for the good of the order, Mr. Berry?
Nothing.
Ms. Wells?
No, ma'am.
Is the school totally out of the Quonset huts, or the trailers in the back, and now into your new offices?
No, those spaces are still going to be utilized.
But the administrative functions
Administrative, yes,
are moving out.
has moved.
And the IS support is out of the school classroom?
Not yet, but IT, yes, they will be moving, if it's later this month or sometime next month.
How many classrooms that are gonna open up?
I'm not positive.
It's like 3 or 4 or something.
3 or 4 of them, is it?
Maybe more than that. It was a pretty large
Actually, it was a surprisingly large area, yeah, taken up.
Some of it was storage and other
Yeah.
stuff, but it was, yeah, it was quite.
You can still see the lines where the old classrooms used to be.
What is old is new again. Stanton?
No, ma'am, thank you. Good discussion.
All right, meeting adjourned. 5:40.